The alien princess discovers that the savior who saved her world is her childhood friend. HFY Stories. Best HFY Stories. The sun dipped below the horizon of Veralia, casting the alien landscape in a soft golden hue. Towering trees with bioluminescent leaves swayed gently in the breeze, and the sky, dotted with 2 moons, began to darken to a deep indigo. The peaceful scene was shattered by the sound of distant explosions, followed by a series of loud crashes. The Verelian people looked to the sky in horror as the invasion fleet descended, their massive ships blotting out the stars. Princess Aria stood on the balcony of the royal palace, her heart pounding. She had never felt so helpless in her life. The empire that now threatened her world was relentless, known across the galaxy for its power and cruelty. They had already conquered many planets, and Veralia seemed like just another jewel in their crown. Her people had fought bravely, but it wasn't enough. "We can't hold them off for long, Your Highness," one of her advisors said, his voice shaky. Aria turned to face him, her eyes filled with determination. "We have to. There must be a way." Her mind raced, but no solution came to her. The Verelians were skilled fighters, but their enemy was well armed and well prepared. Arya's thoughts went to the ancient prophecies that had been passed down through generations. They spoke of a warrior who would come to their aid, a savior from another world, one who would lead them to victory. But she had dismissed those stories as myths, tales of heroes from the past who could never be real. Just as the thought crossed her mind, a loud boom echoed across the palace grounds. Arya's heart skipped a beat. The invaders had breached the outer defenses. Her people were running out of time. A sudden light flashed in the distance, blinding Arya momentarily. She squinted, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Through the haze of smoke and fire, a figure emerged, a lone warrior, atop a powerful mechanical steed. The creature's hooves struck the ground with a rhythmic pounding as it charged towards the invading forces. The rider was tall, broad-shouldered, and wore a helmet that obscured most of his face, but his presence was undeniable. He moved with the precision of a seasoned soldier, his every action calm and calculated. He wasn't like the Verelian warriors. He was something else entirely. The invaders turned their weapons toward him, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts. But the rider was faster, ducking and weaving as he expertly dodged each shot. With a roar, the mechanical steed leapt into the air, and the rider spun in his saddle, drawing a long, gleaming sword. The blade seemed to hum with power as it cut through the air, slicing through the enemy's energy shields with ease. The invaders scattered, unable to match the skill and ferocity of this mysterious warrior. He was unstoppable. Arya watched, stunned, as the warrior fought with a level of precision and control that seemed impossible. His every movement was a dance, a deadly performance that left the enemy no chance. Within moments, the invaders began to retreat, their fleet scattering in fear. The warrior landed his steed just outside the palace walls. As the dust settled, Arya rushed to the balcony, her heart racing. She had seen the battle from above, but she could not believe what she had witnessed. The warrior dismounted, and his boots crunched on the ground as he walked towards the palace gates. He was a human. There was no mistaking it. His movements were precise, his body built for combat, but there was something about him that seemed strangely familiar. As he raised his helmet to reveal his face, Arya gasped. It was him, the boy from her childhood, Aiden. She had known him when she was a child, long before she had become a princess, long before the war had come to their doorsteps. They had played together in the royal gardens, shared secrets and dreams of adventure, but he had disappeared without a trace, lost to a storm of fate. She had never thought she would see him again. And yet, here he was, standing before her just as she remembered him. His face had matured, his jawline sharper, but his eyes were the same. They were the eyes of her best friend, the boy she had once shared everything with. He was the one who had saved her world. "Aiden?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. He turned toward her, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "It's been a long time, Arya." For a moment the world seemed to stop. The chaos of the battle, the threat to her people, all of it faded away. All that mattered was this moment, this reunion. But even as her heart swelled with joy, questions raced through her mind. How had he gotten here? Why was he the one who had come to their aid? "Why are you here? How did you—" He raised a hand, cutting her off gently. "I don't have all the answers, but I know that I was meant to be here. I'm not sure why, but something brought me to this world, something that ties me to you and your people." Arya nodded slowly, her mind spinning. She had so many questions, but there was no time to ask them now. The enemy was still out there, and she had to focus on the task at hand. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. "You saved us." Aiden gave a small nod, his expression serious. "We're not done yet. I've only just begun." The night had fallen over Veralia, and the air was thick with tension. Princess Aria stood on the balcony of the palace, her thoughts swirling like the winds outside. Her childhood friend Aiden was back, only he wasn't the same boy she had once known. The warrior before her now was a man, a hero, someone who had saved her people from the brink of destruction. But how had he returned, and why had he come at such a critical moment? As the days passed, Arya found herself unable to shake the feeling that something more was at play, something beyond fate and chance. She needed answers, and she needed them quickly. The war with the invaders was far from over, and even though Aiden's arrival had shifted the tide in their favor, the enemy was still out there plotting its next move. Arya spent hours in the royal library, searching through ancient texts and forgotten scrolls for any clue that could explain the mysterious warrior who had come to her rescue. The old prophecies, the ones she had once dismissed as mere stories, now seemed to carry a weight she could no longer ignore. They spoke of a human, a warrior from another world, who would come to save Veralia. The name of the warrior was never revealed, but the description matched Aiden perfectly. But why had he been sent? Why had she not remembered him, not even when the first signs of the invasion appeared? Her mind raced with questions, each one more puzzling than the last. Meanwhile, Aiden spent his time training the Varelian forces, teaching them new tactics and combat techniques that made them stronger than ever. He was a natural leader, and the Varelian soldiers respected him, following his orders without question. But despite his outward calm, Arya could see that something weighed heavily on him. He was haunted by memories he could not fully understand, and each night she would hear him pacing the halls, his footsteps echoing in the quiet palace. One evening, after a particularly long training session, Arya found him standing alone in the courtyard, staring up at the stars. The 2 moons of Varelia hung in the sky, casting their silver light over the land. Arya hesitated before approaching him, unsure of what to say. There were so many questions she wanted to ask, but she didn't want to overwhelm him. "Aiden?" she called softly, her voice carrying on the evening breeze. He turned toward her, his face tired but warm. "Arya," he said, his voice filled with a quiet sadness. "I didn't expect to see you out here. Is everything all right?" Arya nodded, her eyes scanning his face. There was a familiar look in his eyes, one she remembered from their childhood. But now it was mixed with something else, something she couldn't quite place. "I've been looking through the old prophecies," she said slowly. "The ones about the human warrior who would save us." Aiden's expression grew serious, and he stepped closer to her. "I'm afraid I don't know much about that," he admitted. "But it feels like this was all meant to happen." Arya studied him carefully. There was something in his words, something in the way he spoke, that made her believe he knew more than he let on. But she didn't press him. "Tell me about your memories," she said, her voice gentle. "The ones that brought you here." "I need to understand, Aiden. I need to understand why you're here." Aiden's eyes darkened, and he took a deep breath. "I don't remember much," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "I know I was on Earth, but how I ended up here and why I'm the one who was chosen to fight, it's all a blur. It feels like someone has erased parts of my life." Arya reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "Maybe the answers are hidden within you. You just need to remember." He looked at her, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. I remember bits and pieces. Varelia, 2 sons, you." His voice faltered for a moment. "But it's like a dream. Everything is foggy, like I'm trying to remember something important, but it's just out of reach." Ira felt a pang in her chest. She could see the pain in his eyes, the struggle he faced to piece together the past. "Aiden, you were my friend. I remember us playing together, running through the gardens of the palace. But you disappeared. I thought I had lost you forever." He gave her a small, bittersweet smile. "I never wanted to leave you. I never wanted to leave this world. But something happened, something that pulled me away." Arya looked up at the stars, her mind racing with possibilities. Could it be true? Could Aiden be the warrior from the prophecies? And if so, why hadn't she recognized him when the invasion first began? As the days passed, Arya's bond with Aiden grew stronger. They spent more time together, talking about the past and the present, trying to make sense of their connection. Each conversation brought them closer, but still, the answers remained elusive. One evening, as they sat together in the royal gardens, Aiden spoke again of his memories. I remember something about a storm, he said, his voice quiet. A storm that pulled me away from here. Arya turned to him, her heart pounding. A storm? A storm brought you here. He nodded. Yes, but I don't know how or why. All I know is that I've been given a second chance. A chance to protect you, to protect Varelia. Arya felt a chill run down her spine. The storm, she had heard of such storms in the ancient texts. They were said to be the work of powerful cosmic forces, storms that could bend time and space. Could this be how Aiden had been brought back to her? Aiden, Arya said softly, her voice filled with wonder. Maybe this is destiny. Maybe you were meant to come back to me, to us. He looked at her, his eyes filled with both uncertainty and hope. Maybe. But there's still so much I don't understand. Arya nodded. We'll figure it out together. The next day, Arya gathered her advisors to discuss the latest developments. The enemy was regrouping, preparing for another attack. But this time they would not face it alone. Aiden was their leader, their warrior, and with him they had a chance at victory. As the meeting concluded, Arya watched Aiden from across the room. He was speaking with one of the generals, his voice calm and confident. For the first time since the invasion began, Arya felt a glimmer of hope. They might just have a chance after all. But deep down, she knew that the answers to their past, Aiden's past, would have to come first. Only then could they truly understand the role he was meant to play in the fate of Varelia. And as the days passed, that truth would begin to reveal itself. The sun hung low in the sky as Arya paced back and forth in the royal palace's courtyard. The day had been filled with important decisions, strategies for defense, talks of reinforcements, and preparations for the final battle with the invading empire. But her mind was far away, focused on the one thing she couldn't shake. Aiden. Aiden, the childhood friend who had vanished years ago, the same person who had saved her world and brought hope to her people. It was impossible for Arya to fully comprehend everything that had happened in such a short time. The memories of their shared childhood were vivid in her mind, but everything had changed since then. Aiden was no longer just the boy from her past. He was the hero of the present, and he was here, standing by her side. The questions that lingered in her mind still remained unanswered. How had he returned? Why had he come now? Was he the one the prophecies had spoken of, the one meant to save them all? Arya turned as she heard footsteps approaching. And there he was, Aiden, as strong and determined as ever. His rugged features were framed by the setting sun, casting a golden glow around him. But there was something different in his eyes now, something more focused, as though he had come to understand a part of his purpose that he had once been unable to grasp. Aiden, she said softly, her voice carrying on the cool breeze. She stopped pacing and faced him, her heart pounding in her chest. We need to talk. He nodded, his expression serious. I know. I've been feeling the weight of it, too. There's something we're both missing, something that connects us. Arya's breath caught in her throat. She knew what he was referring to, and she had felt it too. The strange bond between them, the connection that had never truly faded, even after all these years. It was as though time had never passed for them, as though they had always been in each other's lives even when they hadn't seen each other for so long. We were children once, she began, her voice almost a whisper, playing in the gardens, laughing, dreaming of what life could be. You were my friend, Aiden. You were the only one who understood me. Aiden looked away for a moment, his jaw tightening as if he were struggling with his own thoughts. I remember it all too well, he said quietly. But I wasn't just your friend, Arya. I was something else, something more. I was meant to be here, meant to come back and fight for you, for Varelia. Arya stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his face. You didn't just come back, Aiden. You came back at the perfect time. When we needed you most. The invasion, the war, it all felt like it was coming for us, for everything we held dear. But then you appeared, and everything changed. He met her gaze, his eyes filled with a mixture of longing and uncertainty. I don't understand it either, Arya. I was living on Earth, completely unaware of this world, this destiny. But it feels like something pulled me here. Like I was always supposed to be here, like it was all part of a plan. Arya reached out and placed her hand on his arm. You're not just here to fight, Aiden. You're here because of us. You're here because of me. You were my friend before all of this. And now, I don't know what we are. Aiden's heart skipped a beat. I remember you. I remember everything about you. But when I look at you now, it's like I'm seeing you for the first time. You're not just the princess I once knew. You're more. You are the leader of your people, the one they look to for strength. And that's something I never thought I'd be a part of again. She had always known she was destined for something greater, but seeing Aiden now, hearing the words that seemed to echo her own thoughts, made everything feel even more complicated. She wasn't just a princess. She was a symbol of hope for her people, the one they turned to in times of crisis. And now, Aiden, her childhood friend, was standing before her as the one who could help her protect them all. "I don't know how we can make sense of all this," Arya said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I know one thing for certain. I can't do this without you. We can't win this war without you." Aiden stepped closer, his gaze softening as he reached out and gently cupped her face in his hands. "Arya, we're in this together. We always have been, and I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever." For a moment, everything seemed to fall away. The noise of the ongoing war, the threat of the invaders, it all faded into the background as Arya and Aiden stood in the quiet of the palace courtyard, locked in a gaze that said everything words could not express. They had been apart for so long, but in that one moment, it felt as though nothing had changed. They were still the same, two people who had once shared dreams and secrets under the Varillian sun. But as much as the reunion between them felt right, there was still much to be done. The war was not over. The enemy was still out there, waiting for the right moment to strike again, and now Aiden, the hero, and Arya, the princess, would have to face it all together. The following days were a blur of strategy meetings, battle plans, and preparations for the final confrontation with the invading forces. Arya and Aiden worked side by side, their bond growing stronger with each passing moment. They trained the Varillian soldiers together, combining their knowledge of tactics and combat. Aiden's earth-based techniques blended seamlessly with Varillian strategies, creating a formidable defense force. But even as they prepared for battle, Arya couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Aiden's return than she had yet to understand. She had seen the prophecies, read the ancient texts. They spoke of a human warrior, one who would come to their aid when all seemed lost, but they didn't explain how or why. And now, as she looked at Aiden, she realized that the truth of his purpose was something even they didn't fully understand. Still, she couldn't ignore the feeling in her heart that everything was aligning just as it was meant to. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, and soon they would all see the bigger picture. Arya and Aiden stood together on the eve of battle, overlooking the palace grounds where the Varillian forces were gathering. The stars above shone brightly, and the 2 moons of Varelia cast their soft light over the land. "Tomorrow we fight," Arya said, her voice steady. Aiden nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Tomorrow we win." As the battle loomed, Arya knew that their journey was far from over. The reunion between her and Aiden had been the beginning of something greater, something that would change the course of history. Together they would face the darkness that threatened their world, and no matter the cost, they would fight for each other and for the future of Viralia. The air was thick with anticipation as Arya and Aiden stood on the high platform overlooking the battlefield. The Varillian forces, trained and ready under Aiden's guidance, were preparing for the final confrontation with the invading empire. The enemy fleet hovered in the sky, massive and intimidating. Their dark ships cast long shadows over the Varillian landscape, a reminder that this battle would determine the fate of her world. Arya's heart beat fast as she surveyed the troops below. Their faces were filled with determination, but there was also fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of losing everything they had fought for. But there was also hope. Hope that with Aiden's strength and leadership they could turn the tide. "Aiden, are you sure about this plan?" Arya asked, her voice filled with concern. She knew they had prepared for this moment, but the weight of the situation still hung heavily on her shoulders. He turned to her, his expression calm yet resolute. "We've trained for this. The Varillians are ready. And we have something they don't, a reason to fight. We're not just defending a planet. We're protecting a future. Your future, Arya." She met his gaze, the bond between them stronger than ever. His words filled her with a renewed sense of purpose. Aiden had always been the one to bring her peace when the world felt overwhelming. He had always been the friend she could count on, and now he was the warrior who would stand beside her as they faced their greatest enemy. The sound of marching feet grew louder as the Varillian army assembled behind them. The soldiers, each one determined and ready, stood at attention, awaiting the orders that would send them into battle. The air was filled with the scent of fresh rain and the faint hum of energy shields powering up. "We're ready, Princess," General Kale, the leader of the Varillian forces, said as he approached Arya. His eyes were filled with confidence, a rare sight in these dark times. Arya nodded, her gaze sweeping over the army. "Then let's give them the fight of their lives." Aiden stepped forward, raising his hand to get everyone's attention. "Listen up," he called. "We fight for Veralia. We fight for our families, our homes, and our way of life. We fight not because we're afraid, but because we believe in the future we're fighting to protect. Every one of you here is stronger than the invaders. We've trained for this moment, and we will win. We'll send them back to the stars, and we'll do it together." The Verilian soldiers cheered, their voices rising in a unified roar. Aria's heart swelled with pride. Aiden had given them hope, something they had almost lost in the face of overwhelming odds. As the army moved into position, the ground trembled with the arrival of the enemy's forces. Massive ships began to lower from the sky, their sleek, dark forms looming over the battlefield like vultures. They were powerful, and they were numerous. But they had underestimated the strength of the Verelian people, and the power of Aiden's return. Aiden mounted his steed, a powerful mechanical warhorse that stood taller than any Verelian creature. The steed snorted, its metal body gleaming in the soft light of the moons. Aria stood beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon as the invaders' forces began to mobilize. The time had come. "Ready?" Aria asked, her voice steady, though her heart raced. Aiden smiled, his eyes filled with determination. "Ready?" The signal was given, and the Verelian forces surged forward. The sound of charging soldiers echoed through the air as they rushed toward the enemy. Aiden led the charge, his sword raised high, a symbol of the hope that had been rekindled in the hearts of the Verelian people. His presence, his power, his will to protect them, it all gave them the strength to push forward. The battle began with a deafening clash. Energy blasts filled the air, and the ground shook with the impact of weapons and explosions. Aiden fought with the skill and precision of a master, his movements fluid and powerful as he cut through the enemy's defenses. His mechanical steed was an extension of his will, moving with incredible speed and agility as he tore through the ranks of the invaders. Aria, watching from a safe distance, felt her pulse quicken. She had always known Aiden was special, but seeing him in action now, fighting with such strength and purpose, made her realize just how important he truly was. It was the key to their survival. He was the reason they had a chance at victory. As the battle raged on, Aria watched Aiden's every move. She could see the way the invaders hesitated when they saw him. His presence alone was enough to strike fear into their hearts. The warrior who had been sent to save them had become the leader they all needed. And now, with the enemy retreating, victory seemed within their grasp. But just as Aria began to believe the battle was nearly won, a dark figure appeared on the battlefield. A massive warship, unlike any the invaders had used before, descended from the sky, its size dwarfing anything that had come before. Its weapons were more powerful, its shields more impenetrable. This was their final weapon, their last hope of victory. And it was aimed directly at Aria and Aiden. "Aiden!" Aria cried, her voice filled with panic. "It's too powerful!" "We can't stop it." Aiden's eyes narrowed as he looked up at the colossal ship. "We don't need to stop it. We need to outsmart it." He turned to General Kale, who was overseeing the battlefield. "We need to focus all of our fire on that ship's core. If we can take that out, we can disable its weapons." Kale nodded. "Understood. We'll focus our efforts on the core." Aiden signaled to Aria. "Get back to the palace. You're safer there. I'll take care of this." "No," Aria replied firmly, her voice full of resolve. "I'm not going anywhere." "All right, then. Together we fight." The two of them rode forward, leading the charge against the enormous warship. Their forces focused their fire on the ship's weak points, aiming for the core that Aiden had pointed out. The enemy's return fire was overwhelming, but Aiden and Aria pushed forward, determined to end this once and for all. With a final powerful strike, the Verelian forces managed to hit the core. The warship exploded in a blinding flash of light, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The invaders were thrown into disarray, their forces collapsing as their final weapon was destroyed. Cheers erupted from the Verelian army as the invaders retreated, their ships fleeing into the sky. The battle was over, and they had won. Aria stood beside Aiden, both of them panting from the exertion. The world around them was quiet now, the sounds of battle replaced by the distant hum of the victorious soldiers. "We did it," Aria whispered, her heart swelling with pride. "We saved Verelia." Aiden turned to her, his face bruised but smiling. "We did it together. This was our victory." As the sun rose over the horizon, casting its golden light over the battlefield, Aria and Aiden stood side by side, knowing that this was only the beginning. The future of Verelia was secure, and together they would build a new world, one where peace and hope could flourish.